If you've ever found yourself frustrated, bemused, or even offended at the attitudes of young people, you're far from alone. In fact, you read most newspapers, watch news bulletins, and you'll get the picture that's portrayed to all of us that young people today are disrespectful and impatient and unreliable, a generation who are lazy and presumptuous, and the list tends to go on. It's a very negative picture that is portrayed. Now, I'm not sure about you. One of the challenges that often we encounter when we look at discussing the generation gap and looking at young people in particular is it's sometimes too tempting to resort to generalizations or labels. And this is actually what led me a number of years ago to embark on a research project designed to look at what's really going on in youth culture beyond all of the negative hype that we tend to hear. And in fact, I spent 3.5 years traveling around the world interviewing and speaking with just over 80,000 young people to get a sense of what their values, their attitudes, their defining beliefs actually were. And in this presentation titled Decoding the Next Generation, what I look to do is draw together and pick up on a number of the key insights from that research. What I look to do first up is actually dispel a series of commonly held myths and misconceptions about the youth of our day. Myths and misconceptions like that they are a generation who don't have any work ethic, that they are lazy. Misconceptions like the one that they don't have any respect for anyone or anything, or the misconception that they don't have a moral compass. What I also look to do is, outline a couple of the benefits, some of the really positive things this generation are bringing into the mix. They are adaptable. They're flexible. They're a generation who are natural networkers. Of course, they are tech savvy. They're a generation who are unafraid to question the status quo, which can be an incredibly powerful thing. But of course, regardless of whether you're teaching them in the classroom or whether you're engaging with them as young employees at work or even as your own kids at home, the younger generation can present some challenges too. So I also look to understand what some of the challenges are, but not just labeling the challenges, but understanding what has formed them. And one of the challenges that's key is this challenge that they can be a generation who are high maintenance, constantly needing external validation and praise and feedback, and at the same time often a generation who don't do well with negative feedback or even constructive criticism. We also look at the challenge that this is a generation who can sometimes be just the tiniest bit unreliable, a generation who do not think in a linear way about the future, so therefore getting them to commit to one course of action can be just the tiniest bit difficult. And we also look at the fact that this is our generation who can often lack resilience. And this is so closely tied to the themes of mental health in young people that we hear so much about. A generation for whom when life gets hard, they often draw the conclusion that either they've done something wrong or they're on the wrong path. And that's in contrast to older generations who, were told to just suck it up and get on with it. And so we look at some of the challenges, but most importantly, what I look to do in this session is give a series of insights and tips to parents, to employers, to educators, to help them in bridging the generation gap. Because of course the generation gap is nothing new, but it's wider than ever before. My commitment is that audience members will leave this session not just with a series of insights into what's making the younger generation tick, but some really helpful tips and ideas for bridging the generation gap and engaging this young group in meaningful ways.